Oh yes, okay, we are not hanging around today. Straight behind the wheel of the McLaren 750S. I've been curious about this car for a while, so I thought we'd do a POV drive together, see what it's all about, and we are just kicking it straight off behind the wheel on some little roads of a residential area in the south of France. We're going to start in comfort mode, comfort and auto. I've taken the roof off. Actually, let me show you how quick this mechanism is before we go anywhere. Ooh, start, stop. That feels a bit weird, doesn't it? Let's see how fast this mechanism is. The buttons down here, you have the one for the window and the one for the roof. Lovely, all very nice and quick. And you actually have, you know, this kind of gas that can go through the pan roof right here, which makes more or less of the sunlight come through, which is a really cool option. And then this is the rear window that you can put down if you want to be able to hear the noise with the roof up. But I think we're going to try to go with the roof down. Hopefully the microphone allows the sound to not be disgusting as we're driving. So let's try roof down. This is a 750S Spider after all, so we might as well make the most of it. 750S. Okay, so why this car? I have been very curious about this car actually for a little bit. I've been lucky enough to spend a decent amount of time in the 720S and even been lucky enough to drive the 765 LT. And I was kind of like, when it came out, I was a bit surprised. You know, it wasn't kind of as much of an evolution as I thought maybe it could have been. And also, you know, does it actually make sense in the lineup that they came out with the 750S? Also, there were a few niggles that I had with the 720, which when looking at different reviews and stuff, I was like, maybe they've actually gotten rid of some of the niggles that make the 720S kind of reach the potential that it always had, because the 720 is an unbelievable car. As a mechanical object, it is so good. The performance is outrageous. You all know that. I don't need to remind you of it. I think they look great. It's a proper supercar. It just had these little niggles that affected your kind of daily usage of it and the ownership experience that hopefully they've ironed out in this 750. So that's why we're getting behind the wheel of this thing today, to be able to see if it is kind of just a much better, a more complete version of the 720. Now, the aim was also to trickle down some of the parts from the 765, so make it a little bit more sporty. So it's still comfortable, but over some of these bumps, you can feel that maybe the suspension's been slightly tightened up compared to 720. But honestly, McLarens are just so good. The suspension is unbelievable. You kind of feel like you're riding a cloud, and it kind of messes with your mind because a supercar of this type shouldn't be as comfortable as these are. So getting into this, me saying that it's maybe a little bit more stiff than a 720 still doesn't mean it's uncomfortable. It's still an incredibly comfortable supercar. So we've been in comfort and all this. Now we're going to, so in McLarens you can control two things separately. You can control the powertrain and you can control the handling. So that will be more to do with suspension, etc. And powertrain will obviously be the powertrain, as the name indicates, the engine, but also gearbox, etc. Now I think the sweet spot on pretty much all McLarens when you're driving on the road is sport for the powertrain, and leave the handling in comfort, if not put it in sport. Sport on the powertrain, because race, honestly, on the road doesn't really make too much sense. It's a little bit faster, obviously. You know, like the gear shifts are instant. There's no kind of added drama to anything. It's just pure performance. But when you're driving on the road, you don't need that level of performance. The sport mode is more than enough. And it also just adds more drama in sport mode. We're also going to click this button here, which puts it in manual. And then we can talk about one of the first improvements to daily usage that they've added, which is the lift button, which is right here now. No more million different modes to go through. You just press the lift button and it now goes up in 4 seconds rather than 10. which is actually very useful because you don't need to kind of be reading the road quite as much as you're used to in front of you, and you don't need to anticipate quite so much. All of the user interfaces, while we're stopped at a traffic light, we can talk about this, are just so much better. Again, I know that's not why you would buy this car, but if you're driving it daily, is it going to scratch? Nope, that's pretty good that it hasn't scratched on that. Okay, there we go. Yeah, if you're driving this car daily, those sorts of things will make a difference to you. Right, are we in manual? Yes, now you can hear the exhaust that's opened. Oh, now another thing that they've updated is the exhaust. So we'll have a walk around later and I'll show you the subtle differences they've made to the exterior, and we'll walk around the interior again a little bit. But the exterior, there are actually more changes than you'd think. We'll see those later on. But the thing that you recognize the most easily is that they've gone from 2 rear exhausts to 1 single rear exhaust. And the idea was not just to update the look of the car, but also, and mainly, the sound. Also a little lighter, I think. But mainly it was to update the noise that came out of the exhaust and add more character to the experience and more character to the sound. So not just make it louder, but make it a nicer tone. And on upshifts, there's these cracks. You kind of heard it there. You need to warm the exhaust up to properly get the noise out of it, but it sounds so much better, especially of course in Spider, than I remember a 720 sounding. Oh, it is so good. It sounds more like a 765. And I mean, honestly, you wouldn't think of this car as being a car that really has a lot of emotion in the sound. I don't know, it didn't cross my mind before I'd driven one, like 765 is going to be one of the kind of cool sounding cars that you're going to drive this year. But honestly, having driven it a little bit this morning and stuff, it sounds fantastic, especially when you compare it to a lot of the hybrid stuff coming out now. This is a twin turbocharged V8, but there's no hybrid assistance. And you have they haven't gone crazy with the power compared to the 720, as the name indicates, 750. But the last thing the 720 needed was more power. So we're gonna just get through this. I think this may take a little while, so I'll cut the camera now and catch up with you guys after this little delay. And we're back. I've adjusted the camera angle slightly. Let the car do a little bit of the talking as well, not just me constantly. Listen to this. And it will get better and better as we warm up the engine and exhaust. Oh, that crack. Right, so extra power. Last thing a 720 needed. Now, as we get onto these little roads, you feel one of my favorite things about this is the steering. So it's still hydraulic steering, which feels amazing. Honestly, so good. It was always a strength of the 720. Then even maybe slightly better in the 765, and this basically feels like the 765 steering, and that is a very, very good thing, especially on these little roads. But it just communicates so naturally what's going on between the car and the road surface, how much grip you have, which is a lot, luckily, because this thing flies. I love the sound it makes. I hope that's coming across on camera, but it sounds so good. It's a nice tone, the volume's on point, it's not too loud, but still plenty loud enough. The paddles on the steering wheel are great. They feel fantastic as well, fully carbon. You can also, because they're on a rocker system, you can still use one paddle. So see right here, I'm shifting up on the right, but then I can shift down on the right as well. That's nothing new. The visibility is great, which is fantastic on a little road like this. But visibility is still fantastic. Oh, yes. Yes, yes. Oh my God, it's fast. It is so fast. It gives you so much feedback. Woo! Hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. I know I wasn't talking that much, but I do think it's kind of fun having these videos where you're just kind of along for the ride with me as well. Oh, are you kidding me? Listen to that. Is it gonna do it again? Oh yeah, now the exhaust is warming up. That's what I'm talking about. Listen to that. It feels like... Oh, we didn't get a crack there. Let's try it again. Oh! Oh! That's fantastic. Tell you what, it just feels like there's not like one big change. There's a lot of little changes that all come together to affect the overall experience. And this is, I mean, this is a proper supercar. And it's so usable. Now, the big issue is, with a lot of these, depreciation. Is this going to depreciate as much as a 720? Hard to know, but most likely, yes. This is where the visibility comes in handy. We can go. So yeah, depreciation wise, it will probably not be the best. But nowadays, to be honest, the market's so warped and kind of shitty that any car in this category is pretty much depreciating. Gone are the times where any new Ferrari or any new Porsche held its value or went up in value. Now, whether it's a McLaren, a Ferrari, or Porsche, they're all going to depreciate. Yes, to different levels, but there's less of a gap than there used to be. Oh, this sport mode on the road is definitely the sweet spot that you want to be in. So, how does it feel compared to 720? Well, it just feels like a little bit more of everything. And in a very, very good way. It's kept kind of the good bits, like the base of the interior, which is very usable, the base design of the exterior, which looks great. It's kept the engine, which was just so powerful. I mean, this is 0-60 in 2.8 seconds. I think the top speed is not very different, but to be honest, who cares too much about top speed anyways? You're not going to be driving at top speed ever, if you are ever. So yeah, I mean, it feels like it's kept the good bits, but just ironed out some of the slightly less good bits. There should hopefully be less electrical issues with it, at least the way this feels. I can only speak from my own experience, and the way all the electronics within the car work feels like it's been better calibrated. Hopefully the build quality is the same. Again, from where I'm sitting, feels like there's been a slight improvement. The traction control system is so well calibrated as well. Yes, that front end is so communicative. A huge thank you to McLaren Monaco, who lent me this car and allowed me to pursue my search for what this car was, what it meant, and how it drives compared to the other cars in the lineup, but also compared to a 296, compared to a turbo. And honestly, I do think it has its place. I do think it's updated this platform to where it needs to be today. And it's kind of unlocked a bit of the potential that this had and has done exactly what I kind of hoped it would do. And I think a lot of people had hoped it would do, which is iron out those little niggles. So hopefully it doesn't depreciate like a rock because it is a great car. And I feel like it's one of those cars that kind of got almost ignored or forgotten about slightly when it came out, because it didn't look too new and there weren't any like, you know, headline figures that were new. So it got slightly overlooked, I feel, and I don't think that's fair, because this is fantastic as a supercar that you could also use very easily. Honestly, it is so good. So listen, what we're going to do now is look at some of the exterior changes. Oh, this guy looked like he was about to cross. Look at some of the exterior changes. I'll find a quiet spot to pull into. Right, let's now have a look around this new exterior. Well, I say new, but you know, as we've been seeing, it's a lot of little things that come together to make a decent difference at the end. It's more like an evolution, kind of in the way I guess Porsche would do it with a 911. And you know, everyone doesn't mind that when Porsche do it with a 911 and just kind of subtly update a car and then say it's a new model. It's like the new GT3 that just came out. You really need to have a keen eye to see what the difference is. I guess it's kind of a similar-ish ethos with this. So sorry for the shadows and stuff. It's a winter, sun is not the easiest to film with. So let's kick it off from the front. Now the first main difference you see here is the new splitter, which is slightly extended and has new air vents, but is also body paint color now. So I actually wasn't sure about this when I first saw the press pictures, but when you see one in front of you, it does look very cool. Kind of, again, to arc back to a Porsche, the GT3 Touring, when they first came out in the front, it was painted in body color. I wasn't sure about it. Now I absolutely love it. Still got all of these really cool design cues from the 720S, like these air vent front headlights that look super futuristic that we've kind of gotten used to now and I think look awesome. You now get as standard these little air vents here to get rid of the turbulent air in the wheel arches, like you find on the 765, sorry, and the Artura. New rims. This one's got gold calipers. Of course, you get standard carbon ceramics on these, but looks really nice. I like this design of rims, and I do think the gold goes quite well with the silver spec on this one. Obviously, a new logo, 750S instead of 720S. Slightly bigger air intakes, like down here there's an air intake, and over here also this is all slightly bigger. You get a lot of this mesh, which again is carried over from the 765, which you didn't have on the 720, so that's the easiest way. From the rear you can actually tell these apart pretty easily from the 720. And there's a new air vent here as well. Much bigger rear wing. I mean, it's huge. It's basically the length of the whole rear of the car. The new single exit exhaust, which as we saw sounds brilliant. And then, you know, you still got that huge diffuser. You can see the gearbox hiding back there, which is something I quite like. When you're following one of these, you can just see that gearbox kind of poking out and it looks awesome. You've still got, you know, some features that were really smart in the first place and have done well, like the glass pillars here so that you can see your, you know, all angles when you're looking around back. Great visibility in this car. And yeah, overall, the interior's very similar. So, you know, nothing new here, a bit more ambient lighting, I believe. But the rest stays fairly similar. The only main difference is this new dash with the controls up here. Now, it does also mean you lose that cool 720S, you know, the dash that would kind of lie down when you put it in track mode so that it was more out of your way. You don't have that anymore because of these buttons, but these are more accessible. And then down, if I squeeze in, this is how we were looking at it before, but you can see now the aero and everything buttons up here. And yeah, apart from that, it's basically the same. No point really reinventing it because it was a pretty good interior in the first place. One detail I do love is right here on the pillar. You can see the big carbon fiber weave. You can see it in the sun a bit better there. And then the roof itself is actually a fairly quick mechanism. Press that, hold it down. Up it goes back there, the tonneau, they call it, which you can actually store bags in when the roof isn't there, which is quite convenient. There's a couple buttons just over here that you can use to open that. But yeah, fairly quick roof mechanism. And then with the roof down, it's a very, very cool place to be. So yeah, that's the 750S. I hope you've enjoyed this POV drive and a look around the different features. It's been awesome making this video for you. If you haven't subscribed yet, then please do. There's plenty more videos like this already on the channel and even more to come in the future. So yeah, I hope you're well. See you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye-bye.